But imagine every day we ask these 4 questions. Who am I? What do I want? What is my purpose? What am I grateful for? The whole world is talking about longevity, health span, living longer. For me, it's about living better. We need to create more community and connection. That's what makes us human, right? Everything else is just a tool.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to ALLSMITH. Today I sit down with a man who's quietly shaping the future of human well-being. He's the CEO of the Chopra Foundation and a visionary at the intersection of ancient wisdom and cutting-edge technology. He's the co-founder of Seva Love, ChopraX, NeverAlone, CIRCA and Cyberhuman AI, and has dedicated his life to improving health, social well-being, and planetary consciousness. He carries a rare blend of grounded leadership and imaginative spirit, and he speaks the languages of engineering, entrepreneurship, and spirituality with ease. From his work alongside Deepak Chopra to his mission of reducing global suffering through AI, mental health platforms, and next-generation healing technologies, he represents the bridge between where we stand today and who we could become as a global community. None other than Poonacha Machaiah. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Bryce. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I guess early days I've been talking to you and life has come full circle. So I'm excited to see what we unpack today.
For sure, man. Before we kind of get into all these really cool things that you're doing with AI, I self-reflect a little bit from the first time I met you at Joe Musselman's house, our mutual friend, and we were having like you described offline, an intimate dinner where all of us kind of got to share, got to connect. But more importantly, what I felt that day was this internal energy. There's a little bit of a vibration. And something that comes to mind, Poonacha, is our world believes in Bluetooth, in Wi-Fi. Starlink is now, popular conversation. But there is a vibration and a connection between humans that we can't see, but is felt. And I want to explore your thoughts around that concept.
I think it's absolutely the truth. I think, first of all, I love Musselman. I'm sure he's doing some magical things out there. But, I think what you basically said is, who am I, right? Right now, you and me are on a podcast. We're talking to each other. You're seeing me, I'm seeing you. But actually, what you're seeing me is a few frames off. You're actually talking to Poonacha's ghost, right? If you couldn't see me, you could hear me. If you couldn't hear me, you could feel, touch me, taste me, feel me. There are all these senses. But beyond that, there is a fabric in which everything happens. And we can call that energy. We can call that consciousness. But I think that is the frame which makes everything real. So I think when we meet people, and I do this all the time, when I go into a meeting or go into meets, I say, let my vessel be clear. Let me not carry my baggage. Let my intent, because you're meeting me for the first time. I shouldn't bring what I had, my conversation 30 minutes ago into this conversation. So I want to come with the purest of intention. So I always believe that we are energy beings having a human existence, right? This is the uniform we have. And this uniform, Poonacha Machaiah, Bryce, those are just uniforms. But beyond the fabric of all of that, there is an energy which makes us human, which makes us connect. And when we connect with authenticity, with integrity and higher purpose, you actually feel the vibration, right? Sometimes you go into a room and you say, you know what? I feel terrible today. I don't understand why, but I just don't feel good. Or sometimes when you meet somebody, you say, you know what? I feel great. What was that? I think everything has energy. I think that's what you're referring to. And I think that is fundamental of what makes us human.
Yeah, that's so spot on. One of my favorite thought experiments or mantras rather, along what you just said is you're right. There's reasons why we're in a certain mood. It could be lifestyle, could be sleep, could be supplements. But a lot of it has to do with the environment. It has to do with the people we choose to spend time with. But as a mental framework for high performers, one of my favorite thoughts is striving to be in a good mood despite not having things to be in a good mood about. And I think if you make humor your default emotion and that ends up being the goal through practice and repetition, that's the standard, which in my opinion makes it where your vibration is at a slightly better frequency and the world can feel that. Now you're not chasing, you're not trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. You're at peace and you're gently attracting because of the internal dialogue that you're having with self.
Yeah, I think as you absolutely. I think I'm kind of thinking of a story to share. So when Deepak, and my good friend Dr. Deepak Chopra, when he met his guru, was Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. He was called the Beatles guru, right? And then very famous to bring meditation to the country. And apparently, after the first visit, when they had a big event, and after the event, Maharishi called Deepak and said, "What is this word stress? Everybody's talking about stress." And he's being a yogi and come from the Himalayas and India. He had never heard the word stress. And apparently Deepak being a physician said, you know what, heart rate goes up, blood pressure, all the physiological symptoms which go on with stress. And then Maharishi looked at him and said, that is resistance to existence. Stress is resistance to existence. And there's no resistance to existence, there's flow, there's ease, right? Bruce Lee said, be like water, right? Just flow. I think and I look at the world today, I think we have all these, these things which kind of bound us, right? We are like, infinite possibilities. That's what we are. We are, as people, living beings, are infinite possibilities. Society puts us into a box, right? Mm-hmm. When I was born in India, they'll say, I was running around, absolutely had no idea who I was. And then my parents says, Poonacha, your name is Poonacha Machaiah. You're from Coorg. You're an Indian. And now you're screwed for the rest of your life because you're defending this fictional identity which society is kind of put you into, right? You're born in India. You should be an engineer, doctor, lawyer, right? That's what you should do. So I think what we should talk about, I think what we are talking about here is that how do you live your best life? And I think what you are doing is also what you were sharing just before we started, that finding out the who am I is a lifelong pursuit, right? The who am I? Who's Poonacha Machaiah, besides being a father, a husband, a CEO, and entrepreneur, all the titles. That is really become kind of my quest. And everything I've done, I've constantly now asking these questions to myself.
So beautifully said. Early on when we met, it was right around the time of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. COVID was a popular topic. Social gatherings were hard. There's a lot of rules and regulations. There's navigation of complexity for sure. But you and I connected on two words, warrior monk. And I thought that was a very unique, at the time, I thought it was a coincidence. And then I later self-reflected on it, and it's this beautiful intersection of contrast between working really hard and softening and understanding how to slow down and listen. And within that intersection, it's flow, like you said. But what I'm seeing in the world is so much polarization. You've got left versus right, light versus dark, strong. Like everybody's talking about toxic masculinity. And then over here, they're like, men are becoming soft. And it's this very strong polarization. And people are more concerned right now about being right instead of for what is right. And I'm curious your thoughts when we discuss the word or the phrase warrior monk. How have you navigated that contrast between hot and cold, light and dark, upper, lower, left, right?
Yeah, it's it's a very interesting question. I have two boys who are now 24 and 20. And I remember talking to them and saying, what does it mean to be a man? And when I say this, what does it mean to a man? I know it'll kind of, some people feathers get ruffled, but it cannot be apologizing, So for me, as I say, for me, being a man is about being kind. You still open the door. You still don't wear a hat at dinner. There are certain things which I learned from my father, right? Chivalry and courage. And I still pass it on to my boys. But, so much of these words, good and bad, right and wrong, left and right, it's almost like this or that. Why not this and that, somewhere in the middle? So I think so much of our, of our narrative is around trying to put us into a box, trying to bound us, right? And I said, what we are is infinite possibilities. I always say every sinner has a future and every saint has a past. The line is very thin. And today we live in a world where you're so judged instantly, right? You're first wrong and now you got to prove yourself right. So we live in very precarious times. And when I've said warrior monk, people are like, what do you mean? So you're excluding women? I'm like, so why does a warrior always have to determine it's a man? Is a glass half empty or half full, right? That's just a perspective. So for me, warrior monk stood at my own expression of myself. I said the warrior always helps the helpless, and the monk provides hope to the hopeless. And a world where no one is helpless or hopeless is a world I imagine. So that became my frame of reference of how do I live in a world like why is every 40 seconds someone dying by suicide? In this, let's say in this 30-minute conversation, more than 30 people would have died. Now that is a human tragedy.
Mhm.
Who's helping them and who's helping them with hope? So that became the lens, and I look at you as a warrior and the work you have done and continuing to do as a peaceful warrior, right? And warrior has connotations, but you need people to step in, because without that, the reason we can do this podcast and sit down in our respective homes, because somebody's out there putting themselves on the line, right?
Mhm.
And we never see that. That's invisible, but we have to respect and honor that. So I think I really want to bring. That's why I love working with veterans and the people on the service lines, because it is an invisible job. You have PTSD not because you cannot go back and tell a Navy SEAL you don't know how to cope with stress. That's they're the people who live with stress, right? What happens with PTSD, my perspective is that the amount you sacrificed is not commensurate with what you're given back,
Yes.
right? You did so many different things for saving people. When we come back, you can't talk about it and you'll never understand. That dichotomy is what creates the stress and anxiety and what we call PTSD. That's my perspective. PTSD is not a person, it is the environment which has failed them. It is
Mhm.
society which has failed them. Same thing with what happens with suicidal ideation is not because the person, is because the environment. We talked about environment, your conditions have led you to that. So that's one. So I like this. So I think I always, so my conversation has always been about trying to highlight the juxtaposition of the two. I say you got to be a spiritual warrior in business and say, how can you be spiritual and be a warrior? So the analogy I use is that, I think Castaneda said, so it's inspired by what he said, be ruthless in achieving your goals, but always be kind. Be cunning in achieving your goals, but never cruel.
Mhm.
Be patient in achieving your goals, never negligent. Be sweet in achieving your goals, but never foolish. Life is on the razor's edge, right?
Mhm.
We live in that world. It's not this or that. You got to find. Krishnamurti is a very well known philosopher, my inspiration for a lot of the work I've done. He had a book called Truth is a Pathless Land. You find your own truth. You are born to find your truth. Nobody can teach you your truth. It is your own self journey. And he said a sentence which has become kind of the beacon of my life now. He says, comparison and conformity lead to conflict.
Mhm.
Comparison and conformity lead to conflict. A mind without conflict is a spiritual mind, right? Because we are constantly comparing and conforming. Is Bryce Smith, what should I do? Should I be an entrepreneur? Should I work for a company? Should I go be in this? Should I be that? Should I be a husband? We constantly say, now I'll say I'm an Indian, I'm 55 years old. Um, what sort of car should I buy? How should I dress? What should be my bank balance? So humans always comparing or conforming, and that creates a conflict. That's
Mhm.
why children, they say, are closest to God, because they know they're kind of infinite possibilities. And that's where I think, I don't know, I struggle with this, my friend. Like language comes in the way. I think the English language is not very good at capturing the essence of who you are. And so we kind of have to pick camps. But no, what if I don't want to? I just want to be
Mhm.
my path, right? So that's kind of, I guess, long-winded answer to a question which I think I kind of think about every day.
Yeah, it's very beautiful the way you said that, Poonacha, because language is an approximation of what we're trying to convey, right? It creates a framework for us to communicate from A to B. but it's almost like hieroglyphics. It's like
Mm.
part of the picture, but it's not totally there. So it takes the analogy or the metaphorical mind to then fill in the gaps a little bit, which also has space for misunderstanding, discourse, which is why they say what, like 90% of communication is nonverbal. You're listening to tone, you're watching body language, you're thinking about context, the past interactions you've had with this person, and all of those variables go into our pseudo AI mind
Right.
for us to conceptually understand, sort of. But then when that's marinated and seasoned with the modern day education system, which kind of wants comparison and conformity because
Mhm.
that allows for scalability.
Right.
But the education system says, memorize these things, take this exam, we're going to assign a score that's going to show competence in this particular thing. And then we'll decide the level of respect we give you, or we'll determine what path you go forward. So it teaches people to think right, wrong based on exams. It teaches people to think, who are you? What do you do? The famous question that people ask in different places.
Most
And then
boring
they
question, by
assume,
the way. What do you do?
terrible
Like,
question.
you have nothing to ask me other than what I do, my profession is industrial age.
Yeah. And it also, it's a label, right? Like, I'm a human. I
Right.
help people and I do my best to guide them towards peak expression. And I use a wide array of vessels, case dependent on the person and the opportunity. But that's not easy to grab,
Hmm.
right? So many people are like, oh, that's confusing. This person's speaking in the clouds. I can't really conceptually understand it and put it into simple terms. So I'm just going to assume that they're BSing me in this interaction right now. And then it creates the vibration of tension.
Hmm.
And I'm happy we got to this point in the conversation because that's where I think a lot of the world is right now.
Hmm.
They're examining the past with so much technology where you can examine every little move, watch a video frame by frame and meticulously break it apart. And then everybody wants to, oh, this is what's happened. No, this is what's happened. Everybody's an expert now versus being an observer, versus
Hmm.
being an explorer, versus, hey, here's my perspective. You did a very good job in your eloquent depiction earlier saying, this is my perspective of PTSD. You're not speaking for somebody and saying,
Right.
this is what it is. And then all of a sudden a Navy SEAL's like, that's not my perspective. Like,
Right.
that person's wrong. And now it creates that tensionous vibration like we discussed. How do you think we get past this type of ideology to find space in the common ground? Because it's easy to say, oh yeah, let's be kind. But
Hmm.
it's harder to say, let's seek to understand.
That's a hard problem here. Gandhi said, "Be the change you want to see in the world." Right. I think change starts within you, within us, within me. I, it's like it's impossible to change anybody. Hard to change yourself. It's impossible to change anybody. So Deepak and me, we have this movement called Love in Action. And this whole thing about creating intimacy, which is what you're doing, right? You're creating community, you're creating connection, authentic. And there are four attributes we can practice, right? And everybody has their own path. This is the four A's. The first A is really looking at attention, deep listening. Today, I think as humans, we just don't listen anymore. We're constantly on our phone. We're constantly interrupted. People are just not, they don't have any attention. They don't, so they're not able to grasp that connection, right? Once you have attention, which is deep listening, then there's appreciation. You appreciate the person. You appreciate you. Even today, people are in relationships, and they say, "Why is it not working?" Because you don't even know what they're wearing. You don't even know what the day has been. You have absolutely no attention. So attention, appreciation. The third A is affection, love, kindness, tenderness, compassion, and the fourth A is radical acceptance. It is hard to change yourself. It's impossible to change anybody. Acceptance. When you go to school today, or when you're growing, I think a lot of it is very industrial. Like, you think about the mobile phone was a big block, and now it's like it's almost disappeared, small thing. The classroom really hasn't changed a whole lot. It's become digital. The blackboard has become a whiteboard. The whiteboard's gone digital. Class is still the same, right? I don't think we look at every child born has a superpower. How do you unlock that superpower? What are the value systems? 12 people play the game, one person becomes MVP, right? We recognize individual success. We don't recognize collective. So I think there is a value system which I think will need to change, right? And I think there's also this whole thing around faith, which I know we are struggling a lot globally, which is what does faith mean in the new generation? So I think there is a grassroots conversation to how do you make people intimate with each other, right? And I use the word intimacy very deliberately, right? And intimacy is like, I really know the person, understand. We cannot judge anybody knowing less than 0.1% of their life, right? When people have political debates and this and that, and people, I don't say anything because I'm like, I don't know them. Like, I know what is said about them, I know what I'm reading about them, but you ask me to make a moral judgment on a person I know less than 1% about. What do you want me to say? Right? But people want an opinion, right? And that I think is the hard problem. Like, because human beings, I think, evolved because of storytelling. And the storytelling is nothing but gossip, right? And we tell stories. I can tell you a story, and the better story I tell, I create a bigger kingdom. Create a bigger influence. I create a bigger following. I became so basically some of the best orators and all that create influencers on TikTok or this or that. So we value the number of likes we get, not the like me. Who is like me? What do I
Mm,
like? So I think there's this. I think we have to. When Tinder designed the swipe left and the swipe right was the worst thing which happened because you took an amazingly complex human being and dismissed them on a swipe, right? And so I think we have lost this, what you're doing, this deep listening, right? And I think if we don't have attention, appreciation, affection, acceptance, I think we as humans will never solve the problem because we are not connected to your intimacy to yourself and intimacy to others.
yeah. The thing that's interesting with the formation of the human mind is that I think that we're both the code and the coder,
Hmm.
right? And so take to make an example here, like we must be the person that we are seeking to become, but simultaneously we must hold space for other people to have that transformation. But we don't give other people that grace.
Hmm.
We judge other people and then give ourselves grace-ish. And it becomes this, I'm judging you because I'm judging me, right? Like they say, hurt people hurt people.
Hmm.
And inevitably, we're all playing this game of carrying the past into the present and then being anxious about the future. So then the present loses its entire value system.
Hmm.
And what I'm curious is to explore with you is how humans can consciously rewrite their internal programming. Because if we are the code and the coder, how do we formulate that at a young age? Like you said, children are the closest to God. What happens in that in between where life, education, and social programming takes place, where we lose that playful, loving intimacy?
Yeah, before I answer that question, I think I want to. You said this word grace. It's probably the most powerful word out there. I think why don't we hear this word grace a lot more in everyday conversation? I think we are missing grace in our interactions. We're missing grace in how we are. And if we had grace embodied in every interaction, I think the world would be a much kinder place, right? I think that's one thing. So thank you for bringing up the word grace. I love that word grace. And then the question you asked, I was so caught on the word grace. So you asked me was,
How can humans consciously rewrite their internal programming to be closer to how they came out of the womb, like children that
yeah,
are just full of love and innovation and playful pursuit of intimacy?
I'm going to talk from a father's perspective. I have two boys, Milan, who's 24, Jayan, who's 20. And Jayan, who's 20, is a junior at Wisconsin Madison. And my son, older son, works with me, and he was an athlete and now works in peak living. And what I learned through that experience is kids are completely fine. It's the parents and society who needs to get out of the way, right? My younger son Jayan, when he was a child, he was such an amazing artist. Once he drew a painting and like he was all in concentric circles, and I'm like, wow. And I said, what is it, Jayan? He said, Dad, that's our family. That's you, that's me, that's my da, and the dogs and all of that. They were all concentric circles. Fast forward, went to school, put him into art school. What is a house? Once again, a typical house, right? That's how it's human. So what happens is that we put our narrative of what is a house, what is family into that, and we kind of almost destroyed that creative spirit, right? And because I think the difference between a sage, a scientist, and psychotic is just how much research, how much of acceptance, how much is validated, right?
Mm.
And I think we say the person is crazy, and then suddenly they prove it through research. Then you're all of a sudden a genius. So I think what we need, I feel, is to understand the essence. First of all, let kids be kids within boundaries. Yes, there's discipline, things like that. But that expression, I still try not to grow up. Right. So I think Yoga Vashishta, who was a sage, said, infinite flexibility is the key to immortality. Flexibility of the body mind. Right. When we get older, we become inflexible in the body and the mind. So one is to constantly be flexible. I think we spend too much of attention on exacting plans, on project planning and execution. Very industrial age. It worked at one point when you had to do those things. We do live in a different era right now of expression, of using the human mind. So I think I would kind of say one thing is meditation and as a technique we always use called the soul profile. This is Dr. Chopra's technique. It's not about LinkedIn profile. We can always Google that. But imagine every day we ask these 4 questions. Who am I? What do I want? What is my purpose? What am I grateful for? And if we just ask these 4 questions and we just observed what came into our mind's eye and we just observed and let go, I think over time we will kind of start recalibrating our own internal compass. What is the soul? What is that genuine, what is that intention behind every action I'm doing? The who am I? What do I want? What's my purpose? What am I grateful for? I think we'll start calibrating to the more who is the authentic self, right? Sometimes we spend an entire life, you know, exploring outer space, but then this question of inner space, the who am I, is never answered. And
Mm.
sometimes you're on your deathbed, and man, those questions come in like, like, I wish I'd done something else. I wish I'd done something else, done something this, and you have all these regrets. Why not do that every day? Like you're dying every day, right? Literally, you are. You wake up every morning and you have another lease of life. So why don't we live life like it was your last minute, the last sentence? And if at this point, like now, my life ended, I'm good. I feel because I've done everything I could right up to this point, and I can be at peace because I don't want to be grasping. And that's been kind of my own um, quest to live my best self, right? Get 1% better
Beautiful.
every day and make every second count.
Beautiful. I heard a cool perspective, ironically, just this morning. Imagine you switched places with somebody you deeply love, like your body became theirs and their body became yours.
Mm-hmm.
But you knew that in a certain amount of time, you guys were going to switch back. So you knew that your current life choices, your lifestyle design, what you ate, what you thought, who you spent time with, all was going to impact the person you love most. And then be that person. It's an interesting thought experiment because we think, or at least humans think, what can I get away with?
Right.
Without having the psychology of like, God knows, God is watching, and I'm going to know. And the reason why I sometimes get depressed or anxious or have certain physiological feelings is because of certain choices that are made behind closed doors.
Mm.
But if you're in the body of the person you love most, you're going to make those better choices, knowing very well that they're going to be the recipient of those choices once you switch back. What are your thoughts on that in relation to peak living and what you guys are creating as a framework with AI for optimization of the human experience?
Yeah, it's as you were thinking, I was thinking like, man, what would I do? I have two answers. One is the past and one is the present. My father was one of the biggest influences in my life, but he also was one of the guys who was so macho. He said, grown men don't cry. And after he passed almost 2 years now, if I had 5 minutes to get back into his body and he had mine, I think we would have hugged each other a lot more, right? I think he was a cop. He didn't know how to show love, but he showed me love in many different ways. It wasn't physical, right? He just never did it. That wasn't his thing. It wasn't his jam, right? I'm a hugger. So I would get him to do that for 5 minutes, right? Because that's something I realized that we as humans are supposed to live together in society. People say when you sleep alone, you don't sleep well because you have micro awakening. Because we were
Mm.
through we generations, we were hunter gatherers. We slept in together, and somebody watched over the fire, watched for animals. Today, life has become a lonely sport. Life is not a lonely sport. Life is a team sport. So that's one conversation which really I can think of. And I know it's a very profound question, my friend. I think when it comes to peak living, for me, I said, the whole world is talking about longevity, health span, living longer. For me, it's about living better, right? Adding years of quality to your life, where we say is the wisdom of age and the biology of youth, right?
Mm.
How do you use the wisdom at 55? I definitely wasn't any. I don't want to go back to 45. I want to have the biology of a 45 so I can do the dream things I want to do, like hopefully one day still finish climbing Mount Everest, which is my bucket list, right? So for me, from a peak living perspective, it's about talking about what is the meaning of life? Joy. Joy is the only measure of success. In 2 generations, nobody will know who we are, and that's good, right? If my great grandfather was here and having this conversation with me, I don't know who he was. I just know him by name. So in 2 generations, he's almost non-existent. In another generation, my kid's age, nothing is just a name. So imagine. So why do we take things so seriously? We've talked. Why do we not have joy, laughter? Like why don't we look at life that way? Why is life so serious? And I think we have to have more play. What is the meaning of life? Play. Like when your mom said, Bryce, go do it. Just go explore. I mean, that's what we do as kids. We just go explore. We go touch everything. And then tell a kid, don't touch that. You're going to break that. Don't do this. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. Kids grow up with more don't do this than do this, right? No, yeah, go ahead. Go do it. Because I think we've kind of created these things about don't do something versus do something. Go to a venture capitalist. Focus on one thing. Don't do too many things. I'm like, wow. So when I spoke to, at one point, I thought there was something really wrong with me. I always had 4 or 5 things going on at the same time. And I went to my good friend, Dr. Srini Pillai, who wrote the book Tinker, Dabble, Doodle, Do or Try, Harvard psychiatrist, expert in anxiety. And he says, Poonacha, that is my personality. That's who I am. I learn by doing. So I'm not theoretical. If I need to talk about mental health, I'll go build an app, do it. It's not about failing or succeeding. It's about just by doing, by experimenting, by playing. So for me, it's about play. So let's play, right?
Let's talk about the constraints with play, right? There inevitably becomes a little bit of a survival mechanism associated with that because most people weigh and measure the risk versus the reward.
Hmm.
So when you go play, I'll just talk about the big one, money,
Hmm.
right? We're in a world where so many people go to school to get an education thinking that they're going to work in that field.
Hmm.
Most people don't come from a ton of money, so they end up using student loans. Now they've acquired student debt. They pursue an entry-level job so they can get their foot in the door, gain experience, maybe get an internship. Now they're doing that for 8 hours a day. They're trying to pay the bills. They're trying to, in a housing market crisis where
Right.
most people between the ages of 25 and 45 are renters. They're not homeowners. Now you're stuck paying high rent. Cost of food is going up. Health insurance is more expensive than ever. Gas is more expensive than ever. There's so many songs inside that people want to sing and creative endeavors that people want to go after and ideas that are formulating on a couch that never take fruition because of fear. Oh, if I do that, I'm going to accumulate more debt. Then I'm going to be stuck in the system. And so then what I observe, Poonacha, is that people work Monday through Friday just to make it to their pillow at night. And then by the time the weekend comes, they just want an altered state of consciousness. So they fall into watching millionaires play with the ball. They watch sports. They fall into alcohol, weed, other sources of altered states of consciousness. And then all of a sudden the Sunday scaries sets in. They're like, oh, shoot, I have to get back into the rat race to continue being an active participant in this thing that we call society. But all the while, they have these dreams and these goals that were there when they were young, when maybe money wasn't a big part of the conversation. And they just become lost, calloused human beings that unfortunately lose their spark.
So, maybe I got to think about this a little bit. I think the word which comes to my mind is, I think people, more than play, they're in a game. They're looking at game, right? If they're trying to game the system, they're gaming. This is, how do we make more money? So it's like gamification, win, lose, make money, this, that. For me, the word play is indulgence with joy. Like, you're just not attached to the outcome, but you're doing it because I really am passionate. I always say I hire people with a PhD, and my PhD is passion, hunger, drive. How passionate are you? Are you willing to go hungry? Do you have the drive? It's not about, I'm going to do this if the stock market goes to this. I want to drive the stock price to this, or I expect this particular exit. I do it because I truly, this is play, this is joy for me. And that's the outcome versus trying to look at this very much a game. If I grow younger, not rich dad, poor dad. There's whole these books on how to make money, how to do this and flip real estate. That's a game. They're playing a game, and game is very addictive. Game has outcomes, win loss, and some games don't have an exit. Right? You're caught in this endless loop, and sometimes I think that's what happens to us. But you're absolutely right. I think addiction, and you become addicted to money, to sex, to success, to likes. It's just because that's what society determines as success, right? When you talk about, and that's the word we use quite a lot, who's your role model? What is success? And I think today, if a young child is growing up, who do they aspire to be? Like, what stories do we tell them? And I feel, as a father, and I'm guilty of it myself. My father told me stories every day before bed, and there were stories of mythical archetypes, of all the Greek archetypes, Indian archetypes, all the different stories. And my imagination was letting loose on this. Who are the archetypes which we model today as successful role models? When I ask you, like, who do you consider your successful leader archetype? Who do you consider as a good father, a good husband, a good mother, whatever? I think we are struggling with inspiring stories. And I think there's something to reflect about, right? How do we inspire the next generation, right? Who do we think as an entrepreneur? Who do I look at and say, what, that to me is amazing, because we don't know the full story, right?
I think what's beautiful about entrepreneurship, which I do believe is the future. I
Right.
don't think we're going to have people working as W-2 employees for too much longer. I think everybody's going to be their own entity, and people will work for each other as services rendered, which
Right.
is kind of cool because it feels like it goes back to like bargaining and trading back in the day. Like, hey, Poonacha, I fixed your garage.
Yeah.
oh, cool, Bryce, you and your family come over for dinner tonight. Like it
Mm,
becomes this reciprocity based on what we have available. And I think there's something beautiful about that because I do think it's going to lead to a deeper, meaningful, intimate connection again, which is awesome. And I liked what you said about it being a game
right.
because I also think the choices made are around the pursuit of love.
Mm,
If I get this version of success, which that version is painted individually based on upbringing, environment, I'll say nutrition based on
mhm,
what we see, what we listen to, also probably what we consume. All of those things infiltrate the headspace and the story that we tell ourselves, which can help you spiral upwards or spiral downwards. And I very much tried to study recently and share this process of minimalism,
mm,
being attached to nothing, but
mm,
thankful for everything. And it sounds cliche to just say have gratitude. But to echo Tony Robbins, if you exchange expectation for appreciation, you're in the present. You're thankful for the now while you're in playful pursuit. And something about that, like even as I say it, like I get a little
mm,
bit like
mm,
excitedly sweaty because I can feel it inside. Like playful pursuit allows you to have that childlike hope of like, hey, one day you want to be an astronaut, the next day you want to be a firefighter, the next day a pro athlete, next day an entrepreneur. You're not any one thing. You're infinite possibility as
mm,
you described. And I think that what that does is it allows you to wake up with not only inner peace that I am enough, but also purpose
mm,
of, wow, I have a blank canvas today and I go get to do X, Y, and Z things. Keywords being get to do versus, oh man, I hate this alarm. I'm so tired. I drank too much last night. I've got this hangover. I need to hit it with some NSAIDs. Now I have to go do these things because, you know, I'm the bottleneck in this project and I don't want to get fired because I need that income and I need the health insurance. That's a different frame.
mhm,
And so introducing what I call playful perspective architecture
mhm,
into the realm of conversation helps elevate this idea of joy. And then what you're doing, which I'm so fascinated in, is you're using that idea, but integrating it with AI.
mhm,
And you're creating an individual component of AI for not only specific tasks, but your vision for the future is AI per person, Poonacha.ai, Bryce.ai,
yeah.
which is so cool because it's scaling the individual to sing their song with the world. Let's dive into the conversation around AI.
Yeah, I think when I look at AI, I say the role of AI is to augment human intelligence to remind us of our own natural intelligence, right? I've been a perspective that today, what you talked about is that AI is going to give us more agency. I feel today that if you look at the lens today, yeah, why do I need to work for a big corporation? I can be where I am. I can do what I do well, and I can provide that value. And when you talk about agentic AI, it's so funny because like it is AI is giving us agency to create these agents. So right now, you know, there could be a kid in India who listens to this and saying, "What I want to know, I want to talk to Bryce. I want to know what Bryce did and how was his career switch and how did he do this?" And imagine your agentic AI, Bryce.ai, is helping this kid in India with tips how to start. You already have that knowledge. It just needs to be externalized. It used to maybe a blog post, it used to be a podcast. But imagine now I've taken all your podcasts and I've analyzed it and I've basically told this is how Bryce would answer. And now you basically make an AI out of it. And now you are helping people out. And your agent is working 24/7, right? So if somebody asks you, how do I start a podcast? What mic should I get? What camera should I get? What do I do? You answered that 100 times already, right? Why do you need to answer the 101st time? Your AI can do it. And it can do it
Mm-hmm.
over and over and over again. And you have all this knowledge. And I think the ability for you to externalize your internal knowledge. So when I looked at mental health and suicidal ideation, and I said, how could somebody feel that their life was just not worth it? There are 8 billion people, and could not even one person have come down there and done something? And I said, you have those dark nights of the soul. And what happens is that it doesn't matter what I do, nobody cares. right? And if there was this ability to say that, you know what, actually, I see like my AI is actually, people listening to me, there are things happening, there's somebody talking, it gives a glimmer of hope. My life means something. It might not have gone to school, I might not have gone, but I have this one skill and people love my one skill. And that's what's happening in TikTok, right? Those kind of platform, because people feel like I'm able to externalize myself. And so when I look at AI today, I want to make sure that everybody has their unique ability externalized, right? And my superpower could be, it's like, okay, how do I look at a complex problem and dissect it down to small things so it becomes very tangible? Because I think if I had grown up in this country, I would have probably been diagnosed with ADHD. But that's my superpower. You know, I when I was growing up, I could hardly complete a sentence. I had a very bad stutter, and my mom basically said, "You know what? I think you're super smart, and kids can't understand you. You got to slow down." And she gave me a mantra, and I just repeated it myself every time I felt anxious. That became my anchor. And now when I speak, not many people can say I have a bad stutter, right? But maybe I could help somebody with that. Maybe if I had life experiences and all put in, and I said I lost my father, maybe all his experiences could have been an AI and I could still be talking and conversing and unpacking certain things. So I look at AI as a way to augment our human intelligence to make us more human, right? A
Mhm.
conscious use of technology. Yes, there are a lot of the other sides of AI, but like I said, everything is neutral. Is how do you use it? Does the gun save you or take a life? It's who's using it. It's not the gun.
Mhm. AI is not here to replace our humanity. It's here to help,
Yeah.
is what I'm hearing. But there is a fear narrative out there that all these jobs are going to be replaced by AI. We're seeing the Waymos, the driverless taxis.
Mhm.
We're seeing things take place with lawyers. People can't afford the lawyer fees, so they're using AI to communicate from a legal standpoint. We're seeing script and journalism taken over a little bit by AI. What are your thoughts as around the fear base with AI? Because there's the excitement side, which is the scalability of the human, which I want to come back to later. But then there's also the fear side of, oh my gosh, like my job might be taken away here soon.
Yeah. So I think that is a very definitely a fear. I think when the horse-drawn carriages were replaced by the first cars, I'm thinking of what would have been the conversation on all the horses and all the horse-drawn carriages and everything. I will not have a horse in this thing. The cars are going to come, but things were there because of certain constraint, right? I was at Motorola. Part of the whole when the time was the Motor Razr phone, and imagine designing a phone without a keypad. That's what happened with iPhone, right? So sometimes we do certain things because there were constraints, and the constraint became the job, and that became the lifestyle. We are now just externalizing things. We are coming to a new paradigm shift. So yes, there will be some pain, but in the long run, it's going to recreate a new reinvention of what it is. Why do we need, for example, today, if you tell, I need to look at my ECG and EEG manually on a printout on a paper. Why? There were people at one point who were basically just reading EEG and EEGs, right, on a printout. That's been computerized. Why do you want to make, and also mistake prone? So there were certain jobs which are done because of constraints, right? In this particular podcast, if it was done about 2 years ago, the transcript would have been manually, somebody listening to it, and probably in Asia, listening to what we said and then typing it out. Now there's auto transcribe. So the person doing it, yes, their job got replaced, but that was not a very good use of a person's intellect,
Mhm.
right? They could do something better. So I'm hoping it'll also spur a conversation on what can we do better, right? But we also have people who are now with a one person company who's doing everything through AI and creating jobs and finding wealth. I think people have more agency on their lives. So yes, there is going to be pain. Yes, some of the yeah, yes, if you're a physician, there are certain things can be done with technology, but it will not. The good physicians will not go away. So I think the mediocrity ones will get augmented with technology. Just because we have the digital camera, It doesn't mean photographers went away. It just made everybody. It made everybody gave everybody the ability to take a picture.
Mm.
But the photographers were good, just became better, right? Just because they're Sora doesn't mean everybody can create videos, right?
Yeah, the
Sorry,
concept of transferable skills comes up where
right,
you take that baseline job, like you said, taking a picture, it allowed an easier entry point into that particular skill, which then elevates competition a little bit. And then as a byproduct, everybody gets better. And so you're right, it is a little bit of a pain point because there's a little bit less security, but fear is a great motivator. In order for the world to continue to progress, healthy competition is probably appropriate. The word that you said that I want to unpack a little bit is pain.
hmm,
And our world very much wants to pursue pleasure and avoid pain at all costs. And because of that, the decision making is usually around dopamine addiction or avoidance.
hmm.
What do you think is the future using peak living, using AI, using intimacy, and the various meditative techniques associated with the Chopra Foundation to help people be comfortable being with their pain?
Right. So I think we glorify pleasure. When I say, if I give two words, pleasure and pain, it already creates an image in your mind, right? We have these narratives. Pleasure can give pain, and pain can give pleasure. What lens are you looking at, right? So I think this thing about, I think everything is a teacher, right? So for me, I look at, so I've decided, like, for me personally, these words are really, if you Google, I don't know, I'm not going to try it out, I'm sure. If I Google physical fitness, I'll probably get, if I Google physical health, probably get a lot of six pack abs and fit people. If I Google mental health, I'll probably get different images more about, people putting their hands and faces. That's the way we tag and content, right? So these things are just narratives. And I think pleasure and pain are basically all both teachers. How do we want to use it, right? The word, I like the word resilience a lot. I think
Mm,
resilience is such a powerful thing. It kind of gets you through pleasure and pain, right? And I have this principle called ABC, which has been used, I think, a lot out in the world out there. A is always, a attitude of gratitude. Glass is half empty or half full. Attitude of gratitude, whether for pleasure or pain, right? B, believe in impermanence. This too shall pass. The pleasure and the pain, this too shall pass. And C, always make a conscious choice. Choose love. When you're in pleasure or in pain, it gets you through this narrative of labeling, right?
yeah, that's awesome. With when you look at Never Alone and how that came to be and you becoming a huge asset to its development, how do you describe that for people? Because you and I discussed earlier, no one heals in isolation. And what's the point of doing all these things in the world if we're doing it alone? If we don't have great friendships, great memories, great relationships to then share it with. And so I'm curious your thoughts and how people can use the tools associated with Never Alone to better understand suicidal ideation, to better understand suicide prevention, and help with connection and community as like tangible medicine.
Yeah, I think having looked at it, I think this is still work in progress. I think creating community, Bryce. I mean, you're doing that, right? I think we should forget that's online, offline. We still 10 toes and 10 fingers. We have to meet each other. We have to connect with each other. I'm in San Diego. I got to take time to meet you in person. Can't be sitting down next to you and texting each other. I think that's really where I think there's an entire generation which is going to be born and growing up AI first. What does it mean to have a meaningful conversation? Like, what does it mean to have relationships? I think we got to double down on meaningful intimacy. That's what I would like. I think don't confuse yourself and your selfie, right? I think
Mm.
for us right now, when you look at ideation, suicidal ideation, and things like that, I mean, I think, is it the Veterans or is it the Suicidal Association which talks about the acronym is path warm? I don't know if you heard this
Mm.
term, is path worm. I is ideation, S is substance abuse, P is lack of purpose, A is anxiety, T is lack of trust, H is lack of hope, W is withdrawn, A is anger, R is resentment, M is mood change. This is all the things which happen through a person who's going through this ideation in their mind. We can never solve this problem unless we have community,
Mhm.
unless we have connection, unless we have intimacy. So I think I would like to say, to bring it all back, we need to create more community and connection. That's what makes us human, right?
Mhm.
Everything else is just a tool.
Yeah, it's very well said. What are your thoughts on the kids that don't know what that is? Right? Like you and I were around the time where mom and dad were like, get out of the house during summer vacation or whatever, go scrape your knees a little bit, ride your bike. I don't want you just sitting in the house all summer. Go learn something, get yourself into trouble, but not too much. Modern day, like kids may not know what they don't know, right? Like in a world where negative news seems to gain the most attention, now it seemingly feels very unsafe for kids to go out and do that. When I drive around local suburban neighborhoods, I don't see a lot of kids riding bikes or throwing the ball around. I see a lot of iPads, a lot of
Yeah.
empty parks. And so this idea of community is like talking smack to each other while playing Call of Duty
Yeah.
or maybe playing fantasy sports.
Right.
And I'm curious, like, is this the potential season within our world where you could either double down on community or it could potentially extinct itself?
I mean, that is definitely the biggest concern, right? When you have humanoids and robots coming, are you just going to stop talking to humans? Are you just going to just put yourself into a room? Or is it going to give you an opportunity for you to get out and do all the things you wanted to do, right? I mean, that is the question we have to kind of ask and then work towards, right? And really having this conversation about, no, we need to meet each other. We need to talk to each other. I mean, I make it a point with my boys, like when I'm with them, like, no, you can't use the phone. You got to keep the phone down. We're going to meet for an hour. We're going to spend time. We're going to catch. So I think, like you said, we are the generation. So before the internet, post internet, I grew up at a time in India when there was no electricity in one part in my hometown and electricity. If I go back and tell somebody today there was no electricity, like, what the hell? How can you have not have electricity, right? How can you not have interact? How can you not have a mobile phone? How can you not have AI? I think that is this whole thing of conversation right now is about creativity and all the things which we value the most. What does it mean to write a love letter? Of just literally sitting down and writing a love note versus chat GPTing it and sending it. Is everybody going to look like the same? So I think this conversation about ethics around what it makes human, and that's really my passion. I'm writing a book which is going to be out in March in 2026. It's called Being in the Age of AI. How do
Mm,
you be human in the age of AI? And it was a great experience writing this book. So I look forward to sharing that.
I'm excited to give that a read. The thing that's so interesting to me too around what you just said with the phones is the word boundaries,
Hmm.
right? Like you make that boundary. Hey, when we're going to spend time together, there's no use of the phone. But the pushback might be, oh, I need it for work. I need it for school. Or for some parents, like, oh, I have to keep an eye on this just in case there's an emergency with my kids. And in some cases, that little pocket computer can be a great tool to help
Hmm.
save lives and communicate in an instance. But because of that constant pull, there's no boundary between us and the device.
Right.
And then it creates anger and resentment when other people try to create the boundary with the device.
Right.
And so now there's this tension of, oh, you're just not letting me do and be the way I want. But how often do we, to create an image, sit at a table and everybody's on their phones and not talking with each other?
Yeah. Very,
We're
more
more
common than not.
connected yet disconnected. Yeah. So around these boundaries, it creates conflict, both inner conflict as you want to reach for the thing, similar to a child wanting to watch Cocomelon on an iPad. And then there's this tension between people, between themselves, and then there's no peace.
But tension is good. I think we should have tension. We should know how to navigate tension. Because I think it cannot be positive people. How can we be positive all the time? Life is up
Mhm.
and down. So I think this concept about we should just be peaceful, that's all great, but we live in a world of there's night and there's day, there's hot and there's cold. Life is a contrast, right? And we should never forget to have tough conversations and to have these things. And sometimes people, I think we live in a world when we use the word conflict and it kind of gets people all, you know, um, but it can't be an angry yogi. I mean, it's like there's kind of everything is an oxymoron out there, right? So I think we have to kind of have these conversations. Sometimes they're tough conversations, but they're conversations to be had with authenticity, with integrity, and with higher purpose. What is the intention behind what you're saying? And I think I've learned so much that talking to my boy is that I can't just talk at them. I got to talk to them. I got to talk through them. I understood a lot during the pandemic about mental health, watching my son play games. I realized, he actually had a community. I just wasn't
Mm.
aware of it. Wasn't the gaming was bad. I just wasn't aware how he was using it. Right?
Yeah, I like that you pointed out that tension, it's necessary.
Yeah.
And I think about it in relationships, like some of the people that I work with, we have hard conversations, but every time on the other side, it brings clarity, it brings connection and closeness, especially when that tension is navigated with love and respect
Hmm.
and doesn't lead to he said, she said, and name calling where it becomes disrespect. There's definitely a way to navigate those types of conversations, but you have to be willing to have them. You have to be an
Hmm.
active participant. And I think more often than not, people use the device to shoot a text message because it's
Right. Right.
easier than the conversation, or send an email, or they have it sent to your assistant, or there's an avoidance factor there. And that's definitely the realm of cowardice, in my
Yeah.
opinion. That's the wrong use of the tool.
Yeah. You can hide behind these things, right? Hide behind a chat or hide behind an anonymous ID. You know, when you actually are in front of the person, all the things you could say. You know, I was talking to my wife the other day. Like we met in a bar. How is that ever going to happen in the future? Now it's all on apps, right? It is just
Mhm.
think about it. Our memories are stored on a phone, our emotions controlled by an app, and basically what we do is controlled by an algorithm. Like it's a fascinating world we live in, right?
Mhm. On that topic, I think we touched on it a little bit, and it's related to your upcoming book, which is fascinating to me. But technology can amplify consciousness if it's used with proper intention. I want to discuss with you how we merge this ancient wisdom that we're kind of touching on
Mm-hmm.
with modern tools and bring it into the modern world where kids can play and have exposure to technology.
I think we live in a time right now that you can go to ChatGPT and ask what did Plato say? What did Aristotle say? By the way, everything just happened has already happened, right? There are good proof points of war, right? There is Sun Tzu and the Art of War. There's all these books and wealth of knowledge out there. I think now is the time for us. We are living a golden age where we can learn from history and not to repeat itself, right? So I think we think about. So I look at the whole thing about wisdom and stories that inspires people, right? So I want to use technology to understand ancient wisdom and put those narratives into a modern context, right? How do you kind of inspire? Yeah, I know you recently got married. Do you have children as yet? No.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's next year's project.
Next year's project. Imagine child born, you're holding him or her. What do you talk to them about? You're going to tell them a story. You're going to tell them a story about, I was sitting in La Jolla and I saw this whale going by, and their mind just goes into, and the whale did this noise and it came out, and my grandfather told me stories about the great hunt for the tiger when he was in the forest and he roared, and even today that visualization still has the stories, and I can visualize how that forest was. People need inspiration. I think our goal with wisdom and ancient is to inspire. I think that's what the world is lacking: inspiration.
One of my favorite thoughts and ideas to share with people is that modern day people trade their health in pursuit of wealth, hoping that later they can regain their health with their wealth. It's often too late, or it's backwards. And we don't make health the nucleus to the wheel of life, with the spokes being faith, family, fitness, finances, and fun. I like to believe that wellness is the new global currency. And we're seeing that where entrepreneurs aren't leaning towards alcohol in the bars anymore. They're seeing connection in run clubs. They're seeing sauna and ice and coffee collectives. What trends do you think will define the next decade of health? And how do we continue to make health a supreme priority without just, hey, we're going to irresponsibly make poor choices with the hope that medicine can cure us later with things like GLP-1s and Ozempic and some of these other tools that can maybe mask or assist in the health journey, but can be very dangerous with their risk factors later on?
So I think you're absolutely right. I think preventive health. I think after the pandemic, we realized you got to take health into your own hands. It's not about the healthcare system. You got to take agency. You have to take agency on your own well-being. So I think when you look at the younger generation, they're saying, I don't need to depend on insurance companies, this, that. Let me work on my own health. And I think today, the good thing with knowledge and information, people are a lot more aware about everything going on. So I think you're absolutely right. I think preventive health is going to be the thing. I think, but health is once again is not a lonely sport. You need community, right? You do it with run clubs, you do it with groups, you kind of create this community. So I think in the age of AI, I see a lot more live events becoming popular, right? Events, concerts, people will crave human connection. And I think that's going to be a big trend as we go forward, right? I think preventive health, absolutely. I think there's already all the different techniques between peak living. That's what you talk about, lifestyle prescription. I think next time when you go, I say, I got a mental health issue, I got this challenge, the physician won't just put you on medication or pharmaceutical. They'll give you a lifestyle prescription, what is called social prescribing. Poonacha, I would want you to go volunteer in this organization, because when you're worried about mental health, it's about me, me, me. It becomes about we. You shift the narrative. There's somebody else now dependent on me. You shift the conversation. So social prescribing will become a big thing. I think there's going to be a whole movement around digiceutical, metaceutical, metaverse as a therapeutic, right? So those are technology which are going to be AR, VR, XR, all coming in. So I think we are living in a golden age, right? I think we have very powerful things like the trizepatides, the peptides, GLPs, which have a lot of positive and negative. It's a question of how are you going to use it consciously with peptides and all of that to give you the necessary momentum to, it's like a cold start problem, right? To get you to the gym. But once you get to the gym, how do you create a tribe? What you're creating is a tribe, right? Which sticks together, right? So life is not a lonely sport. So you're never alone.
Yeah, for sure. I like the idea of having doctors prescribe lifestyle adjustments first. It's going to require them to have that as either experience or education within their medical schooling system, which from my understanding and listening to the various narratives, there's not really much nutrition education. There's not really much lifestyle prescription because of the demand to understand diseases and pharmaceuticals and things that, quite frankly, Poonacha, they're profitable. And so my curiosity to push back a little bit is, I love the intersection between preventative medicine and reactive medicine. I love the idea of taking ownership and responsibility and then having Western medicine available for specific needs and for emergencies. I think they're both incredibly valuable. But you and I both know one is 100x more profitable than the other. One is 100x more well-respected than the other. And one is funded by insurance. And so as a byproduct, when you have a cash model, right, and there's a constant negotiation in your headspace as to where you're going to spend your hard-earned wages, there's a fear base on the insurance side. If you don't have the health insurance, these are the things that could happen and you'll be penalized on your taxes. And then over here, it's like, oh, if you don't go to the gym, there's not really a big deal. If you don't have community, it's not really a big deal. If you don't eat well, it's not really a big deal. We'll worry about that later. That social narrative is a problem. And it stems from the narrative that's coming from big pharma, coming from government, and coming from the leaders of the world.
I mean, that's definitely right. That is the hard problem, right? It doesn't matter what I say now, but if I say I'm not going to have health insurance because I'm going to do all of these things, I'm going to get penalized, right? Two, if something does go wrong, I am definitely screwed, right? So I think that is, we are stuck in a healthcare crisis. We know that, all know that. So I think what can we do best is I think both have to kind of somewhere converge. Deepak's written 98 books on well-being and he's still writing, continuing to write books. I think yes, we need healthcare, definitely need it because otherwise, we need modern medicine, with all the things going on. I think it is the answer with CRISPR and all of that. But you still have to have agency in your own life, right? You need to still work out. The most proven thing when it comes to wellness and well-being and longevity is exercise, right? We just don't have the conversation as much on exercising. So these are narratives which still need to be built into everything we do, but that is a hard problem.
The mental note that comes to mind is I cannot guarantee that a positive mindset will lead to a positive outcome. Mm-hmm. But I can guarantee that a negative mindset will lead to a negative outcome.
Yeah, that's very well said. You're absolutely right. So you got to take agency into your hands and basically do all the things you can do, and yet make sure you work within the system to be able to, take care of the rainy day.
For sure. But where I wanted to take that quote is oftentimes what I hear is, oh, if I exercise, it might not work, or I'm not losing weight fast enough, or they want those immediate results, not taking ownership and accountability for, oh, the last 4 years, I had kids, or I was building a business, or I was going through it, and so I didn't make great choices. But now I've exercised for an hour a day, 3 days a week for 2 years, and I don't seem to be lowering my triglycerides, and my blood pressure is still high. And then you come over to the other side and there's like, oh, the research shows that when I take this is going to help. So now there's this battle between credentialism, where big pharma is funneling the research. And you and I both know that in any sort of experiment, it can be manipulated for said outcome that leads to profit. And so I'm asking these things because I'm trying to create clarity and transparency for the modern human that's like you said, hey, I want to be 1% better every day. I'm struggling to have buy-in with this preventative culture. Over here, the research supports it. So I'm trying to follow science and it's creating this inner confusion. What do I do? What's going to work? And how do I have the art of consistency over a lifespan?
So one of the things I decided, I think, actually I'm working towards is I said radical acceptance as the fourth A. I cannot change anybody. The best I can do is work on myself, and water will find its own level. I do all the things I do, and the people who are supposed to meet me, they'll meet me. The people who are supposed to talk to me will talk to me. And I feel energetically, when you're in a toxic relationships, your health suffers. But you also say, tell me who your friends are, I'll tell you who you are. Your network of friends also kind of come around when you're a certain phase of your life. And then I'm in the phase of my life right now saying that I'm going to follow these principles because I believe this works for me. And I believe this is important for my own well-being and for the well-being of people around me. I'm going to do everything I can to live it, not talk about it, because I think people can smell bullshit a mile away, right? Mm-hmm. So be it. And then the rest, I'm just not going to be attached to the outcome. It is going to be what it is. So I've kind of even stopped trying to influence anybody, right? Mm-hmm. I'm trying to see if can my body or work, can what I do help anybody, and they say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, right? And I believe in the universe conspiring. How else would you and me have met a couple of years ago and we continue to meet again, right? Mm-hmm. The universe conspires. And I believe that that's what, and somebody who listens to us, who was supposed to listen will listen, and whoever will take something out of it will take out of it. As long as the intention behind our conversation today was authentic, had integrity, and was for a higher purpose.
Beautiful, man. We can no longer treat the mind and the body as separate silos. I believe this is the future of holistic healing. And our other good mutual friend, Justin Nahama,
Yeah.
pointed me towards a book titled The Body Keeps the Score.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to help people with injuries through all these physical modalities and physical therapy things and massage and acupuncture. And little did I know that a lot of the pain was manifesting through emotion, through relationships that were not serving them, or through environmental factors that they simply weren't aware of. In creating a simple meditative practice, creating a zoomed out perspective of who am I? What do I want? What is my purpose? And what do I have gratitude around?
Mm-hmm.
Like you described earlier, you then become the observer. And in those observations, there's a connection. There's an energy to each one of those. Almost what's more important than what you want is what's not serving me anymore. And I'm curious your thoughts in this relationship between mind and body. I feel like a lot of the feminine is in the body. This is what I feel, and it's not always as logical. A lot of the masculine is super logical, but then they completely miss the feeling. And it goes back to the theme of our conversation today is this yin yang, is this contrast. How have you created buy-in where people are like, no, you can think your way to health, or no, you can physical your way to health, but it's a relationship between the two.
Absolutely. So when I say the mind, people say here. I say body, they'll say somewhere here. But the mind and the body are just basically metaphors, which biology has given words, right? The mind doesn't end at the neck and below is the body. Everything is kind of interconnected. So there's a mind, body, mind, right? And so if you have, in fact, you also know the gut and the brain are connected, the vagus nerve, the 10th cranial nerve. So I think this narrative that, what happens in the mind, it stays in the mind, what happens in the body, everything is intrinsically connected. And we have seen with research, the mind-body connection, right? If you are in a relationship which is toxic and you're struggling, guess what? Inflammation goes up. It's a relationship, but why is it manifesting in your body? Right? Your stomach hurts, you're not able to eat, and you got basically your stress is elevated. But not exactly. Why is that happening? Because that's the mind-body connection. I think the mind and the body cannot be separated. They're both one. And that's really, I think, the essence of the mind-body medicine and the mind-body, the work we are trying to do. Because so much of the work is reductionist.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Jumping into the Chopra Foundation, what I've observed and what I've seen from you guys is the purpose is to reduce suffering and improve global well-being. How does this mission take shape in the real world? How are you guys kind of able to take that mission and make it where it's tangible to the everyday consumer?
I think, first of all, the narrative is we try to live it ourselves with every interaction. The mission is that we want to recreate a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. So how it starts is that every post, every conversation, every word, every interaction, we want to embody that. And we just let it go. We don't even, in fact, with part of the Chopra Foundation now, we're basically saying that we don't even want to do anything, call it the Chopra Foundation. It's a Bryce Foundation. We want to support you. We want to support everybody else's foundation, because the moment you put a name, we create an identity, then we create a territory, then we create this is me and that is you, and this is my foundation and this is your foundation. We said, let us be like an operating system which supports everything. And that's really where Deepak is at his phase of his life in the 4 stages. The first 25, education; second 25, fame and fortune; third 25, be of service; fourth 25, who am I? Transcendence, right?
Mm.
So we are at a point where we want to power and become the operating system, the invisible, with the ecosystem that creating more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. So anything I can do to join a conversation, to be there, that's what we want to do.
Do you think the first 25 years ever ends? Like that education component? Like I feel like now I'm in a season where I'm learning better than I did when I was kind of learning from a foundational standpoint. Cause at that, those young 0 to 25, I didn't really know what to ask.
Right.
Now, as I've gotten older, I'm like, that I'm not able to scratch that itch exactly. Like I need to go search that and learn
You're
more.
constantly learning. I think what I was trying to say the first 25 is that your focus, if you look at the 80-20 rule or 70-30 rule, 70% will be, on going to school and doing all of that and getting the
Mhm.
toolkit. But learning is a lifetime sport, right?
Mhm.
And it's almost like every day I learn and unlearn. I learn, realize like how much I don't know, right?
Mhm. Let's jump into fame and fortune because I feel like a lot of our listeners are in that age demographic of 25 to 50. That can be a very enlightening, beautiful time of life, but it can also feel like you're not good enough or not doing enough all the
Mm.
time. What advice do you give to people that are in that age demographic that are feeling those pressures?
I think understanding self, I think so much of our life is becoming a mirror of somebody else. We are trying to, with the TikTok and the Instagram, and this is what's perfect. But perfection is not real, right? I think for us is trying to craft your own story. That's why I always say don't confuse yourself and your selfie. I think so much of it is like the who am I, doubling down on that, because your life is a personal story, not somebody else's story. And so much of our life is taught to live somebody else's story, not your story. So I think I would say, like, I tell that to my boys, figure out what you love to do and spend the rest of your life trying to do that, not trying to live somebody else's dream, right? Or somebody else's story. Because that's really become the narrative. And as parents, I think that's what I had to also unlearn for my own self, right? And I'm trying to do that better now.
Mhm. With your life, man, you're impacting so many people. You're the CEO or a co-founder of so many different companies. How do you carve out a Google Calendar? How do you make time for your well-being in the midst of service and contribution in so many different things?
Over the last, I think definitely over the years, I've now started kind of using my mornings as very sacred. I try to keep between 4:30 and 6:30 as my time. Like I try nothing to come in that space. 'Cause that is the only thing which I know I can control. And everything else after that is fine, right? But the 4:30 to 6:30 is where I wanted to get everything, my time done, my thinking, my working out, my meditation, my reflection, and just time for myself. That has become a non-negotiable, right?
With a
And there are
4:30
days,
wake up call, do you have a very disciplined evening routine that
you know,
enables you to get to sleep at a certain time so that
not
way
really.
you can?
That's always a struggle for me, and especially over the last 1 month because I have sages and scientists coming up. A lot of my calls are late, and I have to go out late. So, but I try to still keep the same wake up time, right? And I know it'll kind of even out. So I get through that. I push through it. I try not to change my schedule, right? But no, I want to still have a life, right? I'm not the kind of person. I don't believe like I like my father always told me this thing, which I find quite hilarious. He said, "Eat lightly, drink moderately, exercise regularly, and love excessively." Right?
Mm.
So I would always, I believe that have the drink, let the drink not consume you. Have the food, let the food not consume you. Right? Those are things. So I think for me, it's I still want to live. I want to have fun. I want to be like I want to hang out with my son and grab a beer with him in the bar. Like I don't want to miss those moments. So I'm not the kind of guy who'll say, "Oh, it's 9 o'clock. I got to go to sleep now." I try my best to get my sleep in, so I can keep my schedule. But no, it's not as rigid. I try to be in flow. I don't believe in too much discipline. You know, I think it's highly
I
overrated.
love that. I love that so much because for so much of my life, I was the opposite. I always like to lean on the phrase, do you have fitness or does fitness have you?
Right.
Do you have discipline, or does discipline have you? It's an interesting thought process, and I think you're manifesting it, and the way you're living it is the coolest description that I've heard thus far. I'm like sitting with that, which is why I had that element of silence as I was digesting that and really thinking like, whoa, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I know that I take credit for my father. I think he was a very simple man. He was a police officer, and he wasn't very didn't have eloquence, and but he kept things very very real, right?
Mhm.
And it wasn't like about this or that. He said, just make these choices, which are
Mhm.
simple. And sometimes I think we have lost the art of simple.
Yeah. Yeah. Complex seems to be
Yeah.
sexy for the likes and whatnot on social. You and I can relate on losing our fathers. What's the grieving process been like for you? And for me, it's changed me as a human.
Hmm.
It's allowed me to shift my lenses on the world. Hugs are a little bit longer, conversations a little bit deeper. Really wanting to be a better man, knowing that he's upstairs looking down on me, and wanting to pay those attributes forward to community. There's definitely been a shift in my world since he passed. How have you navigated that experience, and how has it shaped you?
I would echo everything you've just said. Is exactly, I would say, are things which I have also gone through. But I've also understood the fragile nature of life. It got me to kind of really understand, like, 1 second you're here, 1 second you're here, next second you're gone, right? It is always there. But then I realized, like, it was funny because I grew up in India. I'm from the warrior community. 24 hours, I just left him. I'd come to New York. As soon as I landed, I got the call he had passed. I'd spoken to him, and then I flew back to him 24 hours later. I was in taking his body to my plant estate where all my ancestors were cremated. We were burning his body, literally cremating it, all ashes going in the sky, and it's like a. And the next morning, it was all done. Right, I was taking the ashes, putting in the river, and I was like, wow. So this is just so transient, and it kind of hit me that we should every second, every encounter, we should always treat as the last and live life that way,
Mhm.
and life of no regret. So I think it's just gotten to me be a little bit more present, a lot more present.
Mhm. You are now considered, from a worldly standpoint, on the back nine. The front nine is the first 50, the back nine being the second
Yeah.
50. Hopefully longer if you continue to optimize and practice peak living. Being on the back nine, I feel like it's inevitable and normal to start facing your own mortality, especially after the experience with your father. How has that shaped things for you? And what lessons would you give to people that are maybe on the front nine that don't quite have the mental wisdom of being on the back nine yet?
I would just say make every second count, be present, right?
Mhm.
Because I think there were moments I was sleepwalking through life. I was just wasn't present. I just didn't even take in the moments. I just was just not there, right? So the one thing I try to be now, I work consciously to be present. If I'm going to say I'm there with somebody for 10 minutes, I want to be present for 10 minutes, not trying to be on my phone or this or that. If I say, so I want to be present as a human being. So I feel that I've made justice. So if somebody even met me for 5 minutes, I want that 5 minutes to be like, that's the last time I want to see the person. And that sometimes you meet people and they're gone, right? You meet somebody on the street, but make every encounter count.
Yeah, I
That's
like
for me. I
that.
think I've wasted a lot of my time not being present. And I think this phase of my life, I'm trying to be a lot more deliberate, a lot more present in my actions.
You're quick, but not in a hurry, it
Yeah,
sounds.
exactly.
And I think the world romanticizes intensity, it romanticizes complexity, but you talked about simplicity being the ultimate sophistication. When you think about peak living, it's not intensity.
Right,
It's alignment.
right.
And to rephrase that or give people some numerical values, there's 365 days in a year. If you subtract 104 of those, you're left with 200 something days. If you subtract some sick days, travel, miscellaneous days, you're left with maybe 200 days, maybe a little bit less. That's your opportunity for consistency as far as health, wellness, fitness, because the other days are kind of removed by life.
Mm.
How do you help create this new paradigm for high performance being alignment and consistency, even though mastering the mundane is not clapped for and it's not something you get a pat on the back for?
Yeah, I think with peak living, there are two components to it. One is this concept of lifestyle prescription. The second aspect of it is to give you tools with technology. So, example, we have partnered with a company called Immortal, which is the immortal chamber used by athletes. It's got 5 different technologies in it, from PMF, PF, infrared, near infrared, hydrogen, vibroacoustic. So in a 25-minute session, it reduces inflammation, takes you through a brain entrainment, like meditative state, right? So for me, it is more like if I tell somebody to meditate, it's hard. Kids today don't want to do it. What if we could take people to an experience? So for me, in peak living is to give people a glimpse into using technology to get you to those states, right? So I want to make it easy and accessible for people. So I'm bringing technology into it to help people. Second thing I'm also doing is things like pain, so massage and things like that. So I partner with a company called Escape, which is an AI bodywork. I think Tom Brady is now the chief wellness officer.
Oh, yeah,
To
I've
you
seen that.
work hard, you play hard, then you use this AI massager to bring you to recover. So it's almost having a therapist with you all the time, a massage therapist. Then you give them the lifestyle prescription, right? And that's really what we're trying to kind of make it very accessible. Because whether we like it or not, I think today people will go to the gym, but as soon as they don't see results, they kind of drop out, right? Because they want the quick fix. The reason why GLPs, because they want to lose weight very quickly without the concept, no pain, no gain, right? That's kind of proven. There is,
Mhm.
you have to work through the process. So we want to kind of bring in the lifestyle prescription, curate the technologies, and create the community.
That massage thing that I saw, the robotic massage is so cool.
Yeah, I loved
Is
it.
that portable? Like, can you
What's
travel
that?
with that, or
Yeah,
do you
we can't. I
program
think
it
it's
like,
basically
hey,
it's
my,
fixed. Yeah, it's fixed. I think they will come to a point when you can basically get the at. I think they just launched the at-home model.
Mhm.
But I think I love a massage. It's kind of expensive. So how do you
Yeah,
get to a massage therapist? And then once again, a massage therapist is also their body goes through. Talk about now. This is a good example, right? A massage therapist goes through a lot of inflammation because they have to work so much, their
yeah.
hands, and they're standing on their feet. Now, guess if that can be done through a technology and you can use that, that's a good. The other person doesn't have to suffer because that is the only thing they thought they could do. So I think
Mhm.
there's skill things we can kind of move up the value chain.
I also think it's cool to be able to program that for like, hey, the left side of my neck is tight, or my lower right back hurts, and now AI can specifically work on those areas, and then based on the feedback loop that they're getting from massaging the tissues of the person, now they're using data analysis to upgrade the depth of the massage, or the intensity of the massage, or back off a little bit if somebody needs a little bit more tender loving care. It's cool. Did you see Tom Brady just cloned his dog?
I saw that. Yes. Yeah, I saw that.
Are you familiar with that technology? Like,
I
how
know of
does
it.
that work?
I mean, I've heard other people do it and other parts of the world, but yeah, pretty cool. It's
Do you
interesting.
think we're going to start seeing cloned humans here soon?
I have no idea. I hope not, but but I think there are people talking about bringing back species, right, which have gone
Yeah.
extinct, and really bringing them back. But I think I really don't think we can clone humans. I guess we can. Yeah, I don't know. It's I don't know. I have to admit I don't know. It's mind blowing what's happening.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
There's so many cool things happening in the world. As we wrap things up, man, something that's floating to the surface for me is love is the ultimate intelligence. I
Hmm.
think most decisions are made in the pursuit of love,
Hmm.
or as a reaction to the lack of love.
Hmm.
Where do you think love fits in science and tech and leadership?
I think it's the essential fabric which makes us human. You know, your dog, your cat doesn't know that you're Bryce or I'm Poonacha. The only thing it knows is that we love it. Love is the only emotion which connects with everybody at a human level, at across species level. So for me, I think it's the most powerful currency. And if we don't have it, we lose something what it means to be human.
Yeah.
So I think leaders, everybody, it's a language which we need to talk about. I think people shy away from it. That's why we call the movement we're launching called Love in Action, right? Because expressing love through attention, appreciation, affection, and acceptance.
Mhm. The future belongs to the emotionally resilient. How will the youth be shaped with mental health and conscious movements in this AI boom?
Ooh, you know, there's a lot of work to be done, I think, by every one of us, because AI is moving so fast. I think that where I'm grappling with the AI is that every day I wake up, I feel like I don't know what's happened today. It's moving at such a fast without the guardrails, with so much of changes that sometimes we don't even know what we're putting out there. So I think we have to. Every person deploying AI has to take almost an ethics class to say, is it right for the world? Not because I can do it, but is it right for the world? Right? So there's this conscious conversation we need to have as entrepreneurs, as investors, as community, as everybody, saying that just because I can do it doesn't mean I need to do it. Is it right? Is it good for the world? Right?
Mhm.
And that's a conversation we need to have.
I like that as a frame for sure. I got a heavy hitter as we wrap things up, man. You ready?
Okay, let's do it.
Let's, let's take a deep breath. From my observation, there's a growing distrust within the world, within institutions. Polls are showing that the faith in government and healthcare have diminished. Most people are leaning towards podcasts and things to seek truth. I think with everything going on from the pandemic to the various shootings that we've seen in the world, to the narratives that are being pushed forward, to the Charlie Kirk assassination, to the Epstein files, there's a lot of media manipulation. It's he said, she said. We don't know exact truth. I know Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens are out there and they're saying different things. And then the financial systems, you're seeing crypto, you're seeing Bitcoin, you're seeing Ethereum. There's a shift. I mean, I saw just yesterday that the last penny ever was minted for 2025, and it takes 3 cents to make the 1 cent. And so it doesn't make sense to make those things anymore. What does that mean for how we respond to crises? And how do we create more trust in a
Hmm.
world of narratives?
So fantastic you asked me this question. Because I think trust, if you say, Punacha, what is the one thing we can do that we can work on? I would say is trust. We have a trust crisis today, right?
Mhm.
Globally. People don't trust God, nation states, parents, friends, and somebody says something and now there's a suicide or there's an attack. I think there's a four things, I call it my trust index. The four things we can do to build trust personally, societally, or through systems. The first one, the first parameter is people trust people and systems who are transparent. How transparent are we? Right? Scale of 1 to 10. So if you tell Punacha, do I trust Bryce? Bryce, can I you ask the question? How transparent is Punacha? 1 to 10. Second thing is that people trust people who who keep their promises and make their commitments. Right? Scale of 1 to 10. Do you make your promises and commitments? Right? Second pillar. The third pillar, people trust people who have expertise. Lover has expertise, a CEO has expertise. Scale of 1 to 10, do you have expertise? And the fourth one, people trust people who empower, who delegate. Systems who delegate, empower, agency. So these are the four pillars we need to build trust on. So for me, is how are we today working towards bringing transparency, keeping commitments, having expertise, and delegating? And if we can do that, I think we can build systems or at least put processes in place which can establish trust.
Poonacha, you're a special human, man. I always
You are
enjoy
special, my
chopping it
friend.
up with you.
Yeah, it's always for me as I speak to you. It always gets me to it's meditative for me because I get to kind of reflect on my own life and reevaluate. And then, coming out of this conversation, I'm like, okay, what are things which you got me to think about a lot of different things. And I think you share a lot of insights. What I love about what you're doing is you are being you. You're being authentic, you have integrity, and you higher purpose. And that's why people want to talk to you. People want to believe in you. People want to trust you, right? Because you're transparent. You can keep your commitments. You have expertise and you empower. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, my friend. We'll definitely talk soon. Guys, for
We
those of you
continue.
listening, if you enjoyed my conversation with Poonacha Machaiah, please rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends. Poonacha, where can people find you?
I think cyberhuman.ai. I think that's probably the best source for me to get most of the information today. And punacha.com.
Very cool. Wow. I always leave our conversations on an elevated vibration, and I appreciate you so much. And I love what you're doing as a father, as a husband, and as a humanitarian. Let's keep it going, man.
Thank you, sir. Love what you're doing, and let's to be continued.
Absolutely, man. Guys, stay on the hunt for who you've not yet become. Till next time. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.